Welcome to the video lecture on course code U18Pcit601, course name Grid and Cloud Computing. And I'm Dr.B. Dhanalakshmi, Professor, Department of Information Technology, Bharat Institute of Higher Education and Research, going to deliver this lecture. And today we are going to see about Unit 3, topic Cloud Computing Models. So first we will see about definition of cloud computing. So the practice of using a network from remote servers which are hosted onto the internet mainly for storing data, managing and processing data rather than a local server on a personal computer. And cloud computing is a model for enabling ubiquitous, convenient, on-demand network access to a shared pool of configurable computing resources. So the computing resources which can be shared may be network resources, servers, storage, applications, and services. And these resources can be dynamically, that is rapidly provisioned and even released with minimal management effort or service provider interaction. And now we will see the diagram, that is the image which shows that cloud computing is composed of 5 essential characteristics and 3 deployment models and 4 service models which are given in the architecture diagram. So first here we are having 3 deployment models, namely characteristic model, deployment model and service model. So here in the characteristic model, we have on-demand self-service and broad network access, resource pooling, rapid elasticity, and measured service. And here in the deployment model, we have 3 categories, namely public cloud, private cloud, and hybrid cloud. And in the service models, we have business process as a service, software as a service, platform as a service, and infrastructure as a service. And here is the cloud ecosystem and the enabling technologies which are supporting the cloud system. So here we can see the difference between the classical computing and the cloud computing. So here the classical computing repeat the following cycle every 18 months which are given, and the cloud computing will pay as you go per each service provided. So we have to buy and then own the classical computing models. And the cloud computing, you have to subscribe for using it. And here the hardware, system software, applications to meet the peak needs. And here the install, configure, test, verify, evaluate, and manage, everything is needed in case of classical computing. But in cloud computing, we can use directly, which save about 80 to 95% of the total cost. And here the pay in dollars, which is high cost. And here in the cloud computing, we pay for what we use. And it is based on quality of service, which is QoS parameters. And here is the cost models where the traditional IT cost model and the cloud computing cost model has been given in the graphical format. So here the number of users is the x-axis and the cost is given in the y-axis. So here in the traditional IT cost model, we can see the variations that occur when the fixed cost and the capital equipment is mentioned, and the variable cost in operational expenses are configured. And here in the cloud computing cost model, we have variable cost and operational expenses just rise down towards the x-axis, that is 0 point. And here is the cloud design objectives. First objective is shifting computing from desktop to data center and service provisioning and cloud economics. And the third objective is the scalability in performance. And the fourth objective is data privacy protection. And the fifth objective is high quality of cloud services. And the last objective is the new standards and the interfaces. Now we will see one by one the essential characteristics. First, on-demand self-service. So a consumer can unilaterally provision the computing capabilities which are the server time, network storage, memory management as needed automatically without any human interaction with each service provider. And the next characteristics we have is the broad network access. Here, the capabilities are available over the network and accessed through the standard mechanisms which promote the use by heterogeneous thin or thick client platforms. That is, mobile phones, tablets, laptops, workstations, all these use the heterogeneous client platforms. And the third essential characteristic is resource pooling. The provider's computing resources are pooled to serve the multiple consumers in the heterogeneous environment, which can use the multi-tenant model with different physical and the virtual resources dynamically assigned and reassigned according to the consumer demand. And there is a sense of location independence in that the customer generally has no control or knowledge over the exact location of the provided resources, but may even be able to specify the location at even a higher level of abstraction is found. And here is an example of resources which may include the storage, processing, network, memory, etc. And the next characteristic is rapid elasticity. Here the capabilities can be elastically provisioned and released in some cases automatically to scale rapidly outward and inward according to the demand of the resources. And to the consumer, the capabilities available for provisioning appear to be unlimited and can even be appropriated in any quantity at any time. And here are the service models which are mentioned. The first service model is software as a service, which is SaaS. The capability provided to the consumer here is to use the provider's applications which are running on a cloud infrastructure. And we can see the applications are being accessed from various client devices through either the client interface such as web browser or even the program interface. The consumer always does not manage or control the underlying cloud infrastructure, which include the network, servers, operating system, storage, or even individual application capabilities, with the possible exception of limited user-specific application configuration settings. And our Gmail, which we are using, is a software as a service. And the next we will see about platform as a service. And here the capability provided to the consumer is just to deploy the cloud infrastructure which are consumer created or acquired applications created using programming languages, libraries, services, and tools which are provided by the provider. The consumer does not manage or control the underlying cloud infrastructure, which may include the network, servers, operating systems, or storage, which has control over the deployed applications and possibly the settings which are adaptable to the configuration are applicable for the application hosting environment. And next we will see about infrastructure as a service. The capability provided to the consumer is to provision the processing, networks, storage, operating system, and other fundamental resources where the consumer is able to deploy and run arbitrary software which can include the operating areas. And now we will see the cloud service models which offer customers varying levels of control over the assets, that is resources and the services, and which present the performance visibility challenges. And here is the diagram where we can see the blue colored blocks or organization managers And the yellow color blocks mention the vendor managers. So the on-premises include the applications, data, runtime, middleware, operating system, virtualization, server storage, and networking. And the infrastructure as a service, here the organization manages the applications, data, runtime, middleware, and OS. But the vendor managers are focused on the virtualization, service, storage, and networking. Whereas the platform as a service, here the organization manages the applications and data, and the vendor manages the runtime, middleware, operating system, virtualization, server, storage, and networking. And software as a service, here the vendor manages the applications, data, runtime, middleware, operating system, virtualization, servers, storage, and networking. And here is the diagram for platform and the ecosystem views of cloud computing, which represent a new paradigm and promote a new way of computing. And here the private cloud includes applications, data, operating system, virtualization, servers, storage, and networking. And here the customer takes control over all parameters. And in infrastructure as a service, the customer takes the control over the applications, data, and operating system. And the other parameters are controlled by the provider. And in platform as a service, the applications and data are controlled by the customer, whereas the operating system, virtualization, servers, storage, and networking are being controlled by the provider. And in software as a service, the parameters are provided or just controlled by the provider. Here, the parameters include the applications, data, operating system, virtualization, servers, storage, and networking. And now we will see about the deployment models. There are three deployment models here, like private cloud, community cloud, and hybrid cloud. The private cloud here, where the cloud infrastructure is provisioned, which are mainly for exclusively for a single organization and which may comprise multiple consumers, that is employees of the organization. So here the business units refer the single organization which we are referring here, and this may be owned, the cloud may be owned, managed, and operated by the organization, a third party, or some even the combination of them, and it may even exist on or off premises. And next deployment model is the community cloud. The cloud infrastructure is provisioned for exclusive use by a specific community of consumers from the organization that have shared the concerns. For example, the mission security requirements, policy, and the compliance considerations, these parameters cannot be shared to all the employees or the community of consumers. So we fix that the community cloud can be shared only among the particular community. So this community cloud may be owned, managed, and operated by one or more of the organizations in the community. A third party or some combination of them, and it may exist on or off the premises. And next is the public cloud, where the cloud infrastructure is provisioned for open use by the general public. So this may be owned, managed, and operated by a business, academic, or government organization, or some combination of them. It exists on the premises of the cloud computer. And next is the hybrid cloud. And here, the cloud infrastructure is a composition of two or more distinct cloud infrastructures, but are bound together by the standardized parameters or proprietary technology. And here is the architecture diagram showing the four deployment models. That is, including the hybrid clouds, we have 4 deployment models, which are private cloud, community cloud, public cloud, and hybrid cloud, as we saw earlier. And the different service models are given here as software as a service, platform as a service, infrastructure as a service. And here are the essential characteristics mentioned, which are on-demand self-service, broad network access, rapid elasticity, resource pooling, and measured service. And here are the common characteristics which are mentioned, which are based on like massive scale, homogeneity characteristic, virtualization, low cost software, resilient computing, geographic distribution, service orientation, and advanced security. And now we will see in detail about the cloud deployment models which evolved from the cluster, grid, and the utility computing. So the cluster and the grid computing leverage the use of many computers in parallel to solve the problems of any size. The utility and software as a service provide the computing resource as a service with notation of pay per use. So what we are using, we are going to pay for that. And cloud computing is a high throughput computing whereby the infrastructure provides a service through a large data center or server forms. So here are the cloud deployment models architecture diagram which are shown along with their cloud environments mentioned here in each block. So in public cloud, service over the internet, utility computing model which uses OpEx and multiple tenants are involved in that, and hybrid cloud where 2 or more public, private or community combination of OPX and CapEx, resource P sortability and federated clouds belong to this hybrid cloud environment. And here is a private cloud where the service over the internet grid computing model which uses CapEx and solo tenant. And the community model cloud involves public, private or hybrid, and federated clouds with OPX users, CapEx community ops, and resource portability is also present in community cloud. And now we will see the advantages of cloud computing. So the first main advantage here is cost savings. So here the most significant cloud computing always benefit is in terms of IT cost savings. Businesses, no matter what their type or size, exist to earn money while keeping capital and operational expenses to a minimum. Here with cloud computing, we can save more substantial capital cost with zero in-house server storage and application requirements. The lack of on-premises infrastructure also removes their associated operational cost in the form of power, air conditioning, and administration cost. You may pay for what is used and disengage whenever you like. There is no invested IT capital to worry about. It's a common misconception that only large businesses can only afford to use the cloud, when in fact the cloud services are extremely affordable for smaller businesses. And the second advantage is reliability. With a managed service platform, the cloud computing is always more reliable and even consistent than in-house IT infrastructure. Most providers offer a service level agreement which guarantees 24/7 and 99.99% availability. And every organization can benefit from a massive pool of redundant IT resources as well as quick failover mechanism. If a server fails, hosted applications and services can easily be transited to any of the available servers. And the third advantage is manageability. The cloud computing always provide enhanced and simplified IT management and maintenance capabilities through the central administration of resources, vendor managed infrastructure and SLA-backed agreements. So always the updations and maintenance of the IT infrastructure is being eliminated as all resources are only maintained by the service providers. And here a simple web-based user interface for accessing software, applications and services without the need for installation is being enjoyed here in the cloud computing. And SLA ensures the timely and guaranteed delivery where the management and the maintenance of the IT services are managed. Strategic edge, the next advantage where the ever increasing computing resources give the competitive edge over the competitors as the time you require for IT procurement is virtually nil. Here, the company can deploy the mission critical applications that deliver. And the next advantage is lower computer cost. We need not spare a high-powered and high-priced computer to run the cloud computing's web-based applications. And here, when you're using web-based applications, your PC can be less expensive with a smaller hard disk, less memory, and more efficient processor. And in this scenario, the PC need not even need a CD or DVD drive as no software programs have to be loaded and no document files need to be saved. And the next advantage here is improved performance, where with few large programs hogging your computer's memory, we can see the better performance from the PC. The computers here in a cloud computing environment can boot and run faster because they have fewer programs and processors loaded into the memory. And the next advantage here is reduced software cost. Instead of purchasing expensive software applications, you can get most of what you need for free. And here most cloud computing applications today, such as Google Docs Suite, are all free. Better than paying for similar commercial software, which alone may be justification for switching to cloud applications. And next advantage is instant software updates. When the application is web-based, the updates happen automatically available the next time you log in into the cloud. So each and every time when you do any changes, it is automatically uploaded and updated in the cloud environment. When you access a web-based application, you get the latest version without needing to pay for it or download or an upgrade. And the next advantage is improved document format compatibility. So the document format which you're creating offline can even be compatible with what you're working in cloud. And the next advantage is unlimited storage capacity. Cloud computing always offer virtually limitless storage. And your computer's current 1 TB hard drive is small when compared to the 100 petabytes available in the cloud. So here, the next advantage is mainly based on the reliability. Unlike the desktop computing, in which if a hard disk crashes and destroy all your valuable data, a computer crashing in the cloud should not affect the storage of your data. So in desktop, once the hard disk crashes or any problem occurs, the data will be lost. and it will be a costly process to recover the data. But in cloud, this will not affect the storage of your data. If your personal computer crashes, all your data is still out there in the cloud, which can still be accessed. In a world where the few individual desktop PC users back up their data on a regular basis, where the cloud computing is a data safe computing platform. And the next advantage is universal document access. Here, that is not a problem with cloud computing because you do not take your documents with you. Instead, they stay in the cloud and we can access them whenever we have a computer and an internet connection. Documents are instantly available from wherever you are. And the next advantage is latest version availability. When you edit a document at home, that edited version is what you see when you access the document at the workplace. The cloud always hosts the latest version of your documents. As long as you're connected, you're not in danger, even if you have an outdated version. And the last advantage being device independence. Here, we are no longer tethered to a single computer or network. Any changes to the computers, applications, and documents follow you through the cloud. And here, when we move to a portable device, and your applications and documents are still even available. And here are the few disadvantages listed of the cloud computing. And the first disadvantage is downtime. As cloud service providers take care of a number of clients each day, they can become overwhelmed and may even come up against technical outages. This can lead to your business processes being temporarily suspended. Additionally, if your internet connection goes offline, you will not be able to access any of your applications, server, or data from the cloud. So, cloud computing always depends on the internet connectivity, the strength of the internet connectivity. And the next disadvantage is security. Although cloud service providers implement the best security standards and industry certification, storing data and important file storage on the external service providers always open up risk. Using cloud power technologies, you need to provide your service provider with access to the important business data. So we have to imagine how your important data is open up in the cloud environment. So being a public service opens up cloud service providers have some security challenges on a routine basis. The easy in procuring and accessing the cloud services can also give the users the ability to scan, identify, and exploit the loopholes and the vulnerabilities within a system. And here, even in a multi-tenant cloud architecture where multiple users are hosted on the same server, a hacker, when he tried to break into the data of other users hosted and stored on the same server. However, such exploits and loopholes are not likely to surface, and the likelihood of a compromise is not great. And the next disadvantage is vendor lock-in. So here the cloud service providers promise that the cloud will be flexible to use and integrate. Switching cloud services is something which has not yet completely evolved. So organizations may find it difficult to migrate their services from one vendor to another and even to train their employees to get adaptable to the cloud environment. So hosting and the integrating current cloud applications on another platform may be a challenging task where we have to look into the interoperability and support issues. And the next disadvantage is which requires a constant internet connection. So here the cloud computing is impossible if you cannot connect to the internet. Since you use the internet to connect to both your applications and documents, we need a proper strengthened internet connection, which you cannot access anything without that. A dead internet connection means no work, and in areas where internet connections are few or inherently unreliable, and this cloud computing will be a deal breaker. And even the system cloud computing can be a slow, which is an important disadvantage. Even with fast connection, web-based applications can sometimes be slower than accessing a similar software program on your desktop. So here, the interface to the current document has to be sent back and forth from the computer to the cloud. So if the cloud servers happen to be backend up at that moment, or the internet is having a slow day, you would not get an instantaneous access to the cloud applications. And here does not work well with low speed connections, which we have discussed already, and features might be limited here where the situation is bound to change. But today, many web-based applications simply are not as full featured as the desktop-based applications. So you can do a lot more with Microsoft PowerPoint than the Google presentation web. And here is the cloud OS where the virtualized data centers are mentioned, so which are serving as a cloud providers. So this table summarizes the four virtual infrastructures, managers, and the operating systems. So here, the manager, operating system, or the platform license mentioned here are Nimbus, Eucalyptus, Open Nebula, and vSphere. So the resources being used here also mentioned, and the corresponding client API or the language are also being mentioned here. And here the hypervisors, Zen hypervisors are being used most commonly. And when public cloud interface is used, EC2 is used. And in some platform, we use Elastic host along with EC2. And vSphere, we use VMware vCloud partners. And special features, we have virtual networks get along with the dynamic provisioning and data protection, vStorage, and BMFS, DRM, HA, all are the special features here for the given platform. So here we have seen about the cloud computing, advantages of cloud computing, what are the different cloud computing models, and what are the drawbacks in the cloud computing models. And thank you for listening.